Hello, this is Tyler with Sensible Soils. We're inside today to discuss the two types of turkeys that we raise for Thanksgiving. One type is called the bronze broad-breasted, and they're very similar to the traditional Thanksgiving Day turkeys that you can get at a grocery store. They've been bred for their genetics that give them a broader breast, so there's more breast meat on them, and they've been also bred to put on a lot of weight in a very short period of time. The second type are our heritage, and we did a few different types of heritage. If you've seen one of our other videos talking about our turkeys, we kind of cover the different varieties there are. They grow a little bit slower, and they almost take twice as long to get to a comparable weight, and they are also a little bit more wild. They're a little bit lighter, and that allows them to fly. Whereas the bronze broad-breasted cannot fly, our heritage are able to act more like our traditional wild turkey or a wild guinea, pretty much anything that's not been bred to put on so much weight that they're unable to take flight. So with the heritage birds, we've got a few different aspects from your traditional broad-breasted. The one is that there's a lot more dark meat, and there's a lot more dark meat because the dark meat really comes from those muscles that are worked more. Whereas your broad-breasted give you a nice big breast, the heritage will give you more meat on the legs. It's very easy to think about this from the aspect of wild animals are more prone to run, get away, and that type of stuff. They're not really bred in the wild. There's no benefit for them to have a big breast on them. So the leg muscles are much more important in a wild bird. Same thing comes for wild rabbits or really any type of wild animal. Leg muscles are more important. So you get a better drumstick, you get better meat coming off of the hindquarters of the animal rather than the upper parts. The one thing that a lot of people don't like though is the fact that you just don't get a large breast off them. So if you're a breast meat person that really likes that breast meat, it might not be for you. However, with heritage birds, one aspect to note is that they have a much more, I won't say exotic, but it's a more of a premium type of taste to the bird themselves. And that flavor that comes from it is from the fact that the birds graze a little bit more. They don't eat just feed all day long, whereas the bronze-breasted are very lazy and they don't scavenge a lot. Our heritage birds are more like wild birds. They go out, they find more seeds, they find more grasses and grains that a traditional bird that you get at the grocery store will not find. So neither bird is really correct. If you want a lot of meat, the broad-breasted are very efficient eaters. They put on a lot of weight very quickly. If you are looking for an experience though, the heritage birds are a very good route to go down. So with all that said, let's take a look at the two different types of birds and I'll show you what they look like and their key differences. So the first thing you probably notice on here is we've got our much larger bird on one side and we've got our much smaller bird on the other side. These are both hens, so we're not dealing with a tom here or a male turkey. These are both girls, they're both hens. So this was a smaller breed. This was, well, a much larger breed. This larger bird is actually about 3.5 months old at butcher, and this bird was about 5.5 to 6 months old at butchering. And this is the difference. This is a heritage, and this is a broad-breasted bronze. This bird was bred for the genetics of growing fast, whereas this bird was bred 100, 200 years ago, and this was a traditional meat bird about that long ago. The difference between these two, you notice a little bit on the coloring. This is much darker meat across the whole bird, whereas this is a much lighter meat. We get a lot of that from the fact that these birds exercise more, they move around more, they scavenge more, whereas these birds are much slower to move. They sit down more often, they lay down more often. They're bred for their genetics of growing quickly, they're not bred for their genetics of scavenging. So the choice of should you do a heritage versus should you do a broad-breasted, it's really up to you. If you're feeding a lot of people, your more important factor is having a lot of meat, you're fine with broad-breasted. If you like new flavors, you like to experience different flavors from what you find at a grocery store, seek out your heritage birds. They are much more flavorful, they're older, they gain a lot more flavor from the fact that they scavenge more often. There's nothing wrong with this bird. This is what millions and millions of people eat every year. They are very quick growers. Because they grow quickly, they don't gain a lot of flavor over time. You can make these birds taste however you want to, though. It's all in how you prep it, all in how you cook this bird. It has not as much to do with how it's raised as much as it is how you cook it. With a heritage, because there's more dark meat, the likelihood of you drying out a bird is reduced a lot more. If you're like me, you like dark meat, you'll prefer the heritage birds over the broad-breasted. But again, if you have families to feed, this is a solid bird. If you find one that's been raised on pasture, it's going to be healthier for you than anything you find out there in the grocery store. Pasture raised is still better than not pasture raised. And if you can find a pasture raised broad-breasted and you find a meat house or a confinement building raised for heritage birds, honestly, these birds are probably not that healthy. They're not going to be as healthy as the animals that were raised on pasture. And both of these on our farm were raised on pasture. The size difference is all about genetics. So again, on our right is our heritage. These are the giblets that you would traditionally get, as well as the neck. So we have obviously a much larger neck on the broad-breasted, but lengthwise, they're about the same. So you're not going to get too much of a difference there on the neck sizes. The heart, however, you have a much larger heart on your broad-breasted. Again, that has more to do with the size. Same with our liver. Our liver is still just a different size, but that is overall still a very healthy liver. Last item on here is our gizzard. And the gizzard is really the stomach of the bird. Some people don't know what to do with it. If you live in the Pennsylvania region, you might hear of chicken gizzards, fried chicken gizzards. There's various ways to eat them. This bird has a little bit more of a harder gizzard. So traditionally, the chicken gizzards, a heritage bird will give you more of a traditional chicken gizzard, whereas your broad-breasted, these can be a little tougher just because the size of the bird. Whatever you get, make sure the inside lining of the gizzard is peeled out. On this bird, there's actually a little bit, that's that yellow part. So we'll peel that off before we actually cook the gizzards. But overall, the animals are the same. We're just dealing with, again, different sizes on these birds. Not too much difference between any of these. So again, the type of turkey you choose doesn't really matter. What's most important is that you are enjoying the holidays with your families. If that means you need a lot of food, you've got a huge party coming over, getting that broad-breasted, you'll be just fine. Small intimate gatherings, maybe even large gatherings with a few heritage birds, that's an option as well. Whatever you do, please make sure you shop local and support your local farm. So as always, this is Tyler Buck with Sensible Soils. If you enjoyed what you saw here today, please subscribe below. If you are local to our region, please visit our website and sign up for fresh, locally delivered produce and fresh pasture-raised eggs delivered straight to your doorstep once a week. Thanks for tuning in, and have a happy Thanksgiving.